Hey everybody, welcome back. Sorry it's been so long. Frame rate reduced to improve video quality. Hey, okay, whatever. Anyway, I'm going to be going over this book right here, Christian Histories, Christianity Through the Centuries. Um, I'm reading from some general places, and I'm actually going to read. Sorry it's so boring. Hope you like the information. But this right here is chapter 20 is the revival and schism of the church. And I'm going to be reading a few things out of here. So this is has to do with the Holy Roman Empire. Let's see, and during the latter part of the period between 800 and 1054 CE or AD, whatever you can think. So I'm just going to be going over that and giving some information. And you see, I told y'all a long time ago that this was all a green screen. Now you see it, right? It's a green screen. And I'm on my phone. I don't have any backgrounds or anything. So sorry, it's pretty boring. But maybe you'll get some good information out of this book. And you could order this and read it yourself if you like. And Christianity Through the Centuries. And it's written by Earle E. Cairnes. Earle E. Cairnes. It's a book I had in seminary, and I like to keep my books because I like the information. So let's see. Although the renewal of the Western Church was not always a renewal in spirit, there was a renewal of strength that helped in its struggle with the state. Repressed by the German Holy Roman Empire, several things strengthened the power of the Pope. Okay, so the donation of Constantine became the legal ground for the possession of land by the Pope. The greatest grant of land, which this document was used to justify, was given to Pippin in 756. In 865, Pope Nicholas I was Pope from 858 to 867, made the first use of the collection of decrees of the various pontiffs of Rome. And that's all the collections that Rome gets, when you pay your indulgences and stuff like that. That's kind of what they're talking about. This collection was known as the false decretals, or the pseudo Isidorian decretals. So when you see false there, you know what that means. Pseudo means it's fake as well. So the pseudo Isidorian decretals. The remarkable document included the donation of Constantine, the real and some forged decrees of decretals of the popes of Rome from the time of Clement of Rome, and some of the canons of the great councils of the church. The collection was associated with the name Isidore of Seville, circa 560 to 636. Head of the Spanish church, first part of the 7th century. We'll skip down a little bit. The donation to Constantine was first exploited in the 8th century, was used to buttress the claims of the popes to the land in Italy, but the decretals were appropriated to support the power of the pope within the church. The decretals asserted the supremacy of the pope over all ecclesiastical leaders of the church and gave any bishop the right to appeal directly to the pope over the head of his archbishop. The right of the church to be free from secular control was also claimed. Although it is not likely that any pope created the forgery, many popes made use of the collection to support their claims to power within the church. The Dictatus of Gregory VII later reinforced these claims. So it's already, you're starting off with the Catholic Church here in 700s, 800s, and they're saying there's false doctrines. And I'm not going to say that all the Catholics are bad people or anything like that. What I'm saying is that you have doctrines that you believe that are built on known known falsities. Okay. Well, let's just go over here's a thing here, the doctrine of the Mass, Part C, which I know is very important to Catholics. So the controversy regarding the nature of Christ's presence in the communion agitated the Western Church early in the 9th century, that's the 800s. Any acceptance of the idea of the Lord's Supper as a sacrifice by the priest was, 9th century. That might have been the 1000s. Anyway, presence of the communion agitated the Western Church early in the 9th century. Any acceptance of the idea of the Lord's Supper as a sacrifice by the priest was a gain for the power of the papacy, because the Pope headed the hierarchy of clergymen, who alone had the power to perform his miracle of the Mass. So right there, they're saying it's a miracle. Jesus is in the wine and the bread. And when you eat the wine and bread, it's changing that into the literal blood and body of Jesus. That's what they believe the Mass is. About 831, Pacius Redbertus, circa 785 to 860, abbot of the monastery of Kobe near the city of Amiens, Amines, okay, Corby near the city of Amiens, I guess, began to teach that by divine miracle the substance of bread and wine were actually changed into the blood and body of Christ. Although he did not call this change transubstantiation, his teaching amounted to the same thing. He set forth these views in 831 in a book entitled of the Body and Blood of the Lord. Such a view was bound to strengthen the power of the priest and his superior in the hierarchy, the Pope, even though the Roman Church did not officially accept the doctrine of transubstantiation until 1215 AD, or CE for some of you, nor fully define it until the Council of Trent in 1545. Boy, that's 1545 is when that was defined, right? But it come about in 831. So, Catholics, come on. I know it's been a long time, but you really think that came from the apostles and Jesus? The first one talked about here is in year 831 AD. And it wasn't defined in the council until the Council of Trent in 1545. It wasn't even a doctrine, and Roman Church did not officially accept the doctrine of transubstantiation until 1215. Whew. I bet most of you didn't even know that if you're Catholic. Let's see, what else can we go through here on the papacy? Capable leaders, there's a whole lot of them, man. I got all kinds of stuff in here. Leo the Ninth and Gregory the Sixth and all kinds of stuff. Where is the Mary part, man? Well, I could do differences and causes for separation in the East and West. But I think that's the East and Western Catholicism. Let's see, the Schism of 1060 or 1054. Sorry, this is probably pretty substantial. And then it's got the consequences of the schism. So I think that's pretty substantial. And then we'll end the video after that, because I really want to do some research. I'm just giving you some food for thought. It's really what I'm doing. In 1054, the final controversy revolved around what was apparently a minor matter. Michael Curliarius, I don't know how to pronounce that name. Sounds like a mobster to me. Patriarch of Constantinople from 1043 to 1059, condemned the church in the West for its use of the unleavened bread in the Eucharist, Such use had been a growing practice in the West since the 9th century. Pope Leo IX sent Cardinal Humbert and 2 other legates to the East to end the dispute. I wish they had just said delegates, but it says legates. Legates. The differences of opinion widened as the discussions went on. On July 16th, 1054, that's a pretty, July 16th, 1054, that's a pretty direct date. The Roman legates finally put a decree of excommunication of the patriarch and his followers on the high altar of the Cathedral Church of St. Sophia. The patriarch was not to be outdone, and thereupon in synod he anathematized the Pope of Rome and his followers. The first great schism of Christianity broke the unity of the Church. From this time on, the Roman Catholic Church and the Greek Orthodox Church went their separate ways. This mutual communication was not removed until December 7th, 1965, by Pope Paul VI and Athenagorius. So that was a long time. Let's see. The consequences of the schism. That's the division between the Eastern Church and the Western Church. So you've got basically your Greek Orthodox and your Roman Catholic is what we're talking about. Any ecumenical movement was difficult after the bitter events that separated the Church in the East and the Church in the West. The modern ecumenical movement, aimed at the reunion of the churches of Christendom, has had little support from the Roman Catholic Church and from the Greek Orthodox Church. See, I told you, they mention it. The movement has been primarily a Protestant movement until recently. How about that? We're mixed in there. We didn't come about until, Martin Luther and stuff. Actually, Protestantism was around before Martin Luther, but with the invention of the printing press, that's how Martin Luther got the big name he got. But there were many people before him. They just didn't have the printing press. And I'm knocking crap over here. But anyway, Martin Luther wouldn't have went anywhere without the printing press. That's what got him his big famous Protestant guy. Anyway, the movement was primarily a Protestant movement until recently to try to join the churches back together. Neither of the two churches desired an ecumenical church except on its own terms, though the Church of the East has been willing to confer with Protestant churches concerning reunion. That's the Greek Orthodox and the Protestants. Separation shut the church in the East off from many of the vitalizing influences that strengthened the church in the West. The rise of towns, nations, and the middle class, the cultural movements of the Renaissance, and the Reformation passed by the church in the East, but the Roman Catholic Church in the West was subject to their influence and made stronger either by assimilation or helpful features, or by reaction against what appeared to Rome to be harmful. The church in the East did, however, engage in some missionary work in its era. Boris, the Bulgarian ruler, adopted in 864 the faith of Constantinople. Although Cyril and Methodius won the Moravians to Christianity, the Moravians finally came under Roman jurisdiction instead of that of Constantinople. The patriarch had more success with missionary work in Russia. A princess named Olga accepted Christianity in 955 and was able to influence her grandson Vladimir 956 to 1015 so that he accepted Christianity in 988. This event marked the beginning of the triumph of Eastern Christianity in Russia. Russia, along with much of Eastern and Central Europe, followed the Patriarch of Constantinople. The Magyars also were converted. The shock of the rise of Islam in the 7th century and the loss of people and land to the Muslims, coupled with 2 centuries of unrest concerning the use of images, left Christianity in the East to decline. Little change in ritual, polity, or theology has appeared in that church until the present time. Consequently, it has not had the influence of the world that Christianity in the West has had, though in the ancient period of church history it had led in the formulation of theology. And so that is they're talking about divisions there, and it was in chapter 20 of the book, and you can see that guy's name. I don't know how to say that. Anyway, that was toward the end of chapter 20 in this book, and this is the book I'm going to be going over. And it's not all about Catholicism, but there's a lot in there, because you got to say we had Jesus and the apostles, and they had disciples, and then down through time, and then you get the Catholic Church, which means the universal church, and that's what the word Catholic means. So, and then there were splits within the church. So you had the Catholics, and then you had Roman Catholics, and then you had Orthodox, and then you had Greek Orthodox, and then you got Protestantism. Then you got all these other things that come out of Protestantism and other groups that form with Catholicism and throughout these eras. So there's a lot of church history, and it goes way in depth. But this is a good book to start with. I know it's not the only one, but it is a good book to start with. So it's what I'm going to be going over, and I'm going to sit through and highlight some things and get some things together to give a better class and stuff later on. And so hopefully just stay tuned, and we'll probably be starting with chapter 1, and instead of me just reading it to you like I just did, I'll go through and I'll highlight some things and talk about it, and that's how we'll do it. And we'll go all the way through this book so you have a better understanding of church history and why things are the way they are, and why they happened, and all this kind of stuff. So stay tuned in, turn your notifications on, and you'll get them as I put them out. Thank you.